Hello. Today we'll try to understand a dative bond or a covalent coordinate bond. How is it formed and how is it different from a regular covalent bond? So let us take first an example of a normal covalent bond. In a chlorine molecule, there are two chlorine atoms which are bonded to one another. Each of the chlorine atoms has 7 valence electrons. For chlorine to complete its octet, each of the chlorine atom needs 8 electrons. So for that, this one pair of electron is being shared by both the chlorine atoms. So this is the formation of a regular covalent bond where the pair of electrons, those are being shared, they are equally contributed by each of the chlorine atoms. So out of the 2 electrons being shared between the 2 chlorine atoms, 1 electron is contributed by one chlorine atom and the other electron is contributed by the other chlorine atom. Now let us look into the formation of H3O with a positive charge, which is also called as hydronium ion. Now for hydronium ion, first we will draw the water molecule. Water molecule is oxygen, which is bonded to 2 hydrogens. So this oxygen had a total of 6 valence electrons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and each hydrogen had 1 valence electron. Hydrogen had to complete its duplet, each one of them, and oxygen had to complete its octet. And for this purpose, this oxygen shared its 1 electron with this hydrogen and vice versa. And the same thing happened between these 2 atoms, this oxygen and this hydrogen. But now if we want to do the formation of H3O positive, which means we are bringing in an H positive ion, because H3O positive is a combination of H2O and H positive, which combine together to form H3O positive. Now, if a bond needs to be formed between the water molecule and the H positive ion, one thing to be careful about is that this hydrogen had 1 electron, and because it has a positive charge, it has already lost its electron. So this hydrogen right now has no electron at all, and in this water molecule, this oxygen is already good with its octet. If both want to get involved in covalent bonding, it cannot be equal sharing between the 2 of them because this hydrogen cannot contribute anything. So what happens is this lone pair of electron on oxygen, this oxygen shares it with this hydrogen atom. So after the oxygen shares its lone pair with the H positive ion, its octet is still good because it gave its 2 electron to H positive for sharing. So before sharing also it was 8 electrons, and after sharing also it has 8 electrons. But the duplet of H positive ion is good now because initially before bonding it had no electrons, and after the bonding now, after oxygen has contributed its 2 electrons to H positive for sharing, now its duplet is complete. In this case, what has happened is oxygen has given its 1 pair of electron which was a lone pair, to the H positive ions for the purpose of sharing, and hence this bond is called as a dative bond. So you can see clearly that in the dative bond, the sharing is not equal. So it's not that the electrons are equally contributed by both the atoms. Here, hydrogen has contributed nothing for sharing, and oxygen has contributed its both the electrons for sharing. If we have to draw the Lewis structure of this molecule, we would draw oxygen, 3 hydrogens. Let us say that this one hydrogen has got a positive charge. So this is a regular covalent bond. Here also a regular covalent bond, but over here the oxygen, out of the 2 lone pairs, it shared its 1 pair of electrons with the H positive, and it still has a lone pair of electrons. And just because it is a polyatomic ion, so we have to make sure that outside the bracket we put a 1 positive charge, indicating that this polyatomic ion is formed by a net loss of 1 electron. Let us try to understand this with another example, which is the formation of O3, ozone molecule. So ozone molecule has 3 oxygens which are bonded to one another in a linear manner. So we are going to draw 3 oxygen atoms. Each oxygen has got 6 valence electron. So I'm going to draw 6 valence electrons around each atom. So this one has 6. This one also has 6. And the same with this one. Now, because oxygen has 6 valence electrons, so it needs to share 2 electrons with its neighboring atoms. So in this case, if these 2 pair of electrons are shared between the 2 oxygen atom, this atom also has its octet complete, and this one also has completed its octet. So how do we do the bond formation between this oxygen and this oxygen? Now what can happen is, because this oxygen has 2 lone pairs of electron and this oxygen is deficient in 1 pair of electron, so a pair of electrons could be shared by the middle oxygen to the oxygen on the left. So if you count now the total number of electrons for each of the oxygen atoms, they all have their octet complete, but over here the 2 bonds which are being formed, they are the regular covalent bonds, which are formed by the sharing of electrons equally contributed by each of the atoms. But the other bond on the left is a dative bond or a covalent coordinate bond. Because this 1 pair of electron which is being shared between these 2 atoms has been contributed only by 1 atom, and that is the central oxygen. Hope you understood the concept. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.